how do you use social media for things like, well, how about we start out with this? This is a brand new podcast. It's a great podcast. Watch if you think it's awesome. How did you use social media to get it out there? And don't think social media is Twitter, and don't think social media is Facebook or a blog. It's everything combined. Like, how did you get it out there? How did you find out about things and make it happen?
So in terms of actually promoting this podcast?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Let me think about that one for a minute. I want to have a good, concise answer for you. When I wanted to start promoting Relentless Business, the podcast, I was interested in, first of all, getting it out on as many channels as possible.
Right.
So I think, to your point, social media isn't just Facebook, it isn't just Twitter, it isn't just Foursquare or YouTube. It's kind of all of those things, but it's the community that's around them. And I looked for people, first and foremost, that would help me create interesting, usable content on the podcast.
Right.
And I also reached out, quite frankly, to people that I knew had at least some degree of reach or influence. So when I was looking to start the podcast, I wasn't going to talk to just anybody that was a startup. I wanted to talk to people that had been doing this for a while and had some success, and were making a living from what they were doing in that regard, because I think it gives them a lot more credibility.
Yep.
Right? We've all heard the whether it's John Jantz from Duct Tape Marketing or Scott Stratton talk a lot about the know, like, and trust factor. And I think choosing guests that have that experience, that lends them that kind of credibility, goes a long way towards building the trust factor, that, you know, people know that, okay, these guys, they've been there, they've done that, they know what they're talking about. You know, I know when I was starting off in business, I had a lot of ideas. I had ideas about how things were, how they really worked, and that doesn't always turn out to be true. So that's why I wanted to talk to people that really had been there and done that, and could kind of dispel some of the myths and common misconceptions that people had.
Right.
And ideally, what I would do then was, once an episode was done, give them ideas for ways that they can also promote it. So I don't want the podcast to be about me. I mean, I talk, but it's really about my guests and about the audience. And so I would, I'll turn around and say, okay, Ben, here's a couple of things that were highlights from it. If you want to tweet that out, here's where you can find the video in 3 different places. If you want to embed it, you're more than welcome to on your own site or somewhere else.
Yep.
We'll go back into Third Tribe and tell everybody, hey, look, we've done several Third Tribers so far. Here's kind of what's coming out of that. And people kind of latch onto that. And it's cool there because it's a community already of people that tend to be very supportive of each other. So I guess if I could narrow it down to any one thing, it's making sure that the content is very credible and usable by your audience.
Right.
And making it as easy as possible on your guests to promote themselves using the video or the podcast, in my case, that I've created about them.
I've never thought about that. It's kind of interesting, and I feel kind of foolish. I'm wondering how this is going to change how I go about my social media stuff, because I always look at what I'm going to do for social media. What am I going to do? How am I going to promote this? I've never thought about, how do I empower other people to use social media to make me look good, or to distribute ideas that are good for them. Because, to make me look good, let's be honest, that it is what a lot of people are trying to achieve, including myself, but that shouldn't be your primary goal. Your primary goal should be, how do I make somebody else's life better? And so how do I create content that'll make somebody else's life better? And then how do I empower other people to talk about it? And that's a different tangent on social media I think a lot of people don't really consider, including myself. And I think that's a pretty powerful statement in itself there.
Yeah, I think I'm glad to hear that resonated a little bit. But I think if and we all want to make ourselves look better. I want to promote this podcast. I want it to grow, do well.
Yeah.
But if I came across as only making it about me, or putting too much of the focus on me, then it comes across as a little disingenuous. And I want it to be conversational, so it's not like I'm going to just sit there and ask a question and then shut up. I mean, you have to do that sometimes, but I try to interact a little bit with my guests as well, because I want them to feel like they could be sitting here right next to us having a conversation about this very topic or listening in at the very least.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And so, yeah, empower other people, in various ways by promoting them, and it will come back to you. It's already done so for me many times over. And quite frankly, I'm getting everything and then some that I want out of this podcast just by doing it and having a chance to speak to entrepreneurs and business people like yourself. And I'm learning things from every guest I talk to. So
yeah. And other thing too that I see, some people that are in Third Tribe or going to go into Third Tribe. Here's the premise of Third Tribe. The idea is that pardon me, that making money isn't a bad thing, but making money by being sleazy or being completely self-absorbed is. So you can kind of get a happy medium between the two, and I think that's really important. So again, that goes back to the idea that, first, make good content. Second, empower people to share the content. And that way you're helping everybody, including yourself, and don't feel bad about helping yourself. It's good, because if you develop yourself, then you potentially are developing other people. So
yeah. And as you grow and all of us elevate our status or our audiences or whatever, I think it becomes somewhat incumbent upon us to then be willing to help other people out that are coming along behind us that are doing the same things. Yeah. And, you got to be careful with that. You don't want to just promote anything and everything. Right. It's got to be relevant to your audience and in context. And, I probably wouldn't go and ask, Chris Brogan to promote my, my sports blog. I know what Chris talks about. So if I had something relevant, then maybe I'd engage him on that. But, make sure it's targeted too, and you don't get trapped into, calling people for the wrong thing.
No, for sure. Well, I really appreciate that. It's a great tip. I think that's awesome. This will be great for the show. And check out just down here, you can see where Scott's podcast is, and we'll probably give you a couple of different avenues to get it, like through iTunes, or you're on YouTube and everything, I assume, too. So we'll make sure that we give people a multiple list of how to get a hold of Scott. But thank you for the coffee, and we'll have to chat later.
We'll do coffee again sometime soon.